We are live here at Grey's Anatomy, and we're with our very good friend, Payton. Hiya, Payton.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I am good.
Good.
Tell us what your title is, Payton.
My title on Grey's Anatomy is...
Oh, wait, I like how you quantify that. On Grey's Anatomy.
On-set medical advisor, and I also play the role of Dr. Knox, one of the anesthesiologists on the show.
That's true. You are a hyphenate, as we like to say. So how long have you been with us here at Grey's Anatomy?
This is my 11th season.
Yeah.
And I think I'm in the neighborhood of about 240, 245 episodes.
Oh my gosh. And how long has Dr. Knox been around?
Oh,
I can't remember when he appeared. He was nameless anesthesiologist for a while, wasn't he? Or was he always Dr. Knox?
Dr. Knox, well, there's a whole...
Is there a backstory?
There's a backstory to Dr. Knox.
Yeah.
Dr. Knox appeared, oh God, third season, I was in a scene, oftentimes as my role as in being medical advisor, I'll be put into the scene. Our medical producer will say, go in and be the assistant surgeon. Mm-hmm. So I was in a scene with Sandra Oh, and no, I wasn't. It was with Kate Walsh. And
Kate Walsh, Sandra Oh, whatever.
So there was another guy on the set who was our key electrician, whose name was Payton. And so I'm in this scene with Kate Walsh, and she has a line. I'm her assistant surgeon. We just delivered a baby by C-section, and she has to walk away from the table, and her line was, will you close for me, Dr. Knox? And because the other person on the set is called out all the time by our director of photography, everybody on the radio, we all wear earpieces, everybody on the radio started calling me Dr. Knox. So for about a year over the radio, I was Dr. Knox. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, as long as people are calling me Dr. Knox,
you might as well be Dr.
Might as well figure out who Dr. Knox is. Let's create a backstory. And one of the things I would do as my other job was to go in, and every time a patient is on the operating table, we have to put an ET tube, which is put them in their throat and tape it to their mouth right before they rolling.
Right.
So I thought, well, what could be easier than if I was just sitting right next to where they were in costume? So Dr. Knox became an anesthesiologist just by pure chance of being...
Because you were lazy, you wanted to sit next to the patient, basically.
Yes, and I didn't want to keep running in and out of the set constantly.
Let's call a space Payton. You were lazy, Payton. You wanted to sit next to the patient.
And I wanted to make certain that all of the actors who were playing patients were well taken care of.
There we go.
Weren't choking on their
That's a much better answer than my
yeah,
I'm sorry. I withdraw that.
It was all about patient care.
Very good.
And then it just kind of went from there. I had the proper department make up name badges and everything. And and then one day I was sitting on the set with one of our writers, Soné, who used to be Shonda's assistant, and Hammer, who has moved on to other shows.
To our fans, that's actually Mark Wilding.
Mark Wilding.
We call him Hammer for reasons better left unsaid.
And I was sitting on set with them, and at least 4 people came up to me and said, or they were calling out, Dr. Knox, we need you on set, Dr. Knox. And people would come up and talk to me as Dr. Knox. And finally, Soné said, why hasn't Dr. Knox ever spoken? And luckily, she was writing the next script. And in that script, Dr. Knox spoke. So that was sort of the...
This is like Lana Turner getting discovered at Schwab's, for God's sake.
That was the origin story of Dr. Knox.
That's amazing, Payton. I almost want to stop here, because I don't know how we're going to top this.
Oh, we can top this. Trust me, there's more to come.
Okay, so aside from Dr. Knox, as we said, you are also our on-set medical advisor.
Yes.
So tell us a bit of what that entails.
Okay, well, I'm trained to do medicine on television. I'm not trained to do medicine anywhere else. I was afraid, should somebody...
Good safety tip.
Yes,
yeah.
Should somebody have a medical emergency on set, they would turn to me and say, what do we do? And in that situation, I would gladly back out. But
you'd say call 911.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, the only person to have a medical emergency on set was me.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So, and that story, well, we can go back.
We can go back to that.
We can go back to that. That's a whole other story. So, but I had known... I worked on the show Chicago Hope. Mm-hmm. A number of the people on our show, on the crew of our show, had worked on Chicago Hope, and one of them was our medical producer, Linda Klein. Mm-hmm. And we were good friends, and I was a production coordinator, assistant coordinator, and production coordinator on that show. Mm-hmm. And Linda got this show, and she was slightly overwhelmed because she was not only a producer here, she was a producer on Nip Tuck, and her assistant was leaving. And
oh, wait, hold on a second. There goes Rob Korn, executive producer of Grey's Anatomy. Well, you bumped
Don't
in.
interrupt.
Don't interrupt.
You interrupted Vanessa
I was
last
about
week.
to like do a shout out to you, so this is perfect timing.
Okay, so you were...
So Linda was on both shows. Her assistant was leaving this show, and she just kept complaining about how she couldn't find any medical people to be her assistant. And I said, "Oh, just hire me for 4 or 5 episodes. It's near the end of the season. Don't invite me back." And then
Famous last words. Don't invite me back.
240 episodes later, I'm still here. But as soon as I got to the set, there was a vibe on the set that was just unlike any other place I'd been at. It was kind of right at the height of when the show was taking off. I also, in my youth, I had worked for Joe Papp, who was one of the most miraculous New York theatrical producers.
Yes.
And he was one of the first people to do colorblind casting. And so the set felt very familiar in the cast and in the crew, because you would look at this crew and there were women in all sorts of positions you didn't normally see women in, and there were people of color in all sorts of positions. It was like, oh, this is what I'm used to, this is what I was trained in, and now finally come to fruition here.
Right.
Maybe I'll stick around because this is kind of interesting. How do I keep this job?
So you went from "don't write me back" to "please, please, 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 please."
Please. How do I do that? And my first thing I did was I went around the set and tried to memorize what every piece of medical equipment was, or piece of medics, even little tiny bandages and things. It's one skill set I have, that I can memorize objects in space.
Oh, okay.
And so I would go around in all these racks and try to learn what all this stuff was. And slowly but surely, I started to know a lot about the medical equipment. And part of my job now is I order all the medical supplies for the show, 80 to 90% of them, and I know what all of them are. So it's a big. I always look on my job as in other departments, like in electric and grips, there's somebody called the best boy, and the best boy is responsible for not only their equipment that they need, but their personnel. So I also hire all of the additional personnel that we need to be on the show, and we hire real medical professionals. So we hire firefighters, paramedics, scrub nurses, ER nurses, doctors, and so being on the show very long, I have a long list of people that I contact. Right. Depending on what the episode's needs are.
Right. So I think we can point out, like, when in our surgeries, which you and Linda choreograph for us, all the people other than our recognizable people, as a rule, are part of what we call the Kleinettes.
Yes.
And they are genuine hospital staff.
Yes.
That know how to handle the equipment.
Right. And they look on this as this is an adventure. They get to be away from they're always doing life-threatening work, and suddenly they're
doing pretend life-threatening.
So this is a vacation for them. It's a lot of fun, and you can't really get an actor to duplicate. Like if you watch one of our Kleinettes, our most famous Kleinette is Boki.
Or the little Asian scrub nurse, as she's known on Facebook. Yeah.
Yes, you can look up her Facebook page. But when she slaps an instrument into a doctor's hand, it is with such conviction, and it also makes our actors feel part of that scene too. More realistic. More truth in what they're doing, just because there's somebody there who knows what they're doing and can do it with such conviction.
Right.
So that's part of the job. And the other part of the job is I set up the medical situations. Like I go ahead of the company about a scene or two ahead and make sure that our sets are all ready to go. I'll deal with the set dressing department and with the prop department. And really the prop department is part of our team, because where does props and medical, one becomes medical, one becomes props. It's all props. Right. And that is really just, I've always thought of myself also as part of the prop team, because we work so closely together.
So you have a lot of stuff going on between you and Linda, and you do have to kind of be thinking. You also work with our prosthetics guys, the Bermans, right? So when that comes down, or sometimes you actually create it, because I know in our production meetings, is this going to be a Berman build, or is this something that Linda and Payton are going to do for us?
I think that's one of the brilliances of Linda Klein, who is our medical producer, is her ability to create fields that look identical to what you would be operating on in a normal surgery.
Real world, right.
And so that's part of what we're going ahead and setting up in advance, and making sure she has everything she needs to put that together.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you also work with like Matt in video playback and the stuff that they
I don't
acquire
work that
for us, or no?
I don't work that closely with them.
So that's a whole other thing.
I'm aware of what's. I'm like, no, I can't say that.
Yeah.
That's
You're
really,
more of the actual practical hands-on stuff.
Hands-on stuff.
Right.
And the other stuff is I also generally set most of the background. Background being the extras who are in the scene, who, let's say, will go into the ER. One of the things I like to do in the ER is every time that a patient comes into the ER, they're usually hired for the day. Those are the actors that are being paid minimum wages to go sit in a bed. Well, I like to make it a little more fun for them. So I always walk up to them in the ER when they get assigned to their bed. I'll say, "What brings you to the ER today?" And
you're Dr. Knox, no matter what. You're Dr.
half
Knox.
the time, you can get it, but there'll be lots of people who really, they're young actors, or they're wannabe actors, or they just want to play. And I think that's the most important part of my job is I really want to have fun. And I want the people around me to have fun. So part of it is just making sure they have fun. And you'd be amazed at the kind of reactions of what people come up with. I recently had one guy say that, he was a pre-op transsexual, and his hormones were all out of whack. Or I had a woman 2 days ago who said, "I was just raped." I was like, okay. But then we get a lot of broken legs, and every time they say something, I'll go out and get a leg splint for them, or whatever they say, I'm going to make sure.
So to an extent, you kind of create then that scenario for them.
Just because it makes their day more fun, they're more involved, and you may not ever see this.
Right.
Or in the cut, you don't know what's going on, but all of those people in the background have somehow gone through me, and they've kind of come up with what this scenario will be, and it just makes their day more interesting. It makes also the other extras that are around who are playing doctors or playing nurses, it gives them a little more something to work with rather than just walking up to somebody blindly.
Do you find that they ever engage in kind of one-upmanship, where they hear what the person in the bed across the way had and they come up with something worse?
I think they also get very nervous once they hear that I'm going to ask the question. It's like, oh my God, I have to have an answer. I have to have an answer. A lot of people go blank, and then they'll start going, when did you lose your memory? Those kind of things, or people will come in and they'll, I don't know why I'm here. I'm like, oh, you're searching for drugs, those kind of things. But I always give them something to play with and something to do.
That's great. Okay, so I mean, the next question I was going to ask you was, what are some of the must-have skills that a med advisor needs? I think one of them is obviously being very creative, but what else do you think is necessary?
Well, when I always used to talk, when I first started the job, I was like, what do you do? But I think the most important part of the job is to understand the story that's being told. And part of what we're trying to do is tell the medical story, and it may not even be the words on the page, but what is in the frame that the camera is looking at? What is passing through that frame that's going to help tell that story? And what can we get into that frame to make sure that that story is told, that there's something medical going on? Be it a syringe passing through, be it just somebody walking through with an IV, or we do all these big, obviously the big blown up scenes where we have something roll over and there's all these victims coming in. That you have to try to get. We might have 100 people here. Not all of it's going to get on camera, but you have to make sure that you're not wasting your time doing all this stuff and it's not getting on camera.
Right.
So one of my goals is to sit and watch the takes and make sure something of the medical story is being brought into frame.
And I think also because there's always the authenticity versus drama factor.
Right.
So you have to ride herd on. It can't be completely outrageous. It has to be
and
based in reality in some way for us.
But it's always drama trumps medicine.
Exactly.
And it's what a lot of medical professionals who come here and work don't quite understand is we're doing a procedure that might be 5 minutes, it might be 2 hours, but we have to reduce it down to 3 steps because we're going to do it in 10 seconds. What are the most visual 3 steps? A lot of the steps are really small and boring, but a lot of medical professionals that come here and work will go through, they can't separate out the different steps.
The minutia of it.
The minutia,
almost.
and they'll get all bogged down in the minutia. I'm like, no, that's not visual. The camera's not going to see that. We don't care what that is. What is the step that we're going to actually see on camera?
Right. So that's a challenge right
Yes.
there. Yes. Okay. So, okay, going back to Dr. Knox for just a second, do you enjoy doing Dr. Knox when you have him?
I love it.
So it doesn't really add to the stress of your day, kind of shifts it for you?
No, and it also puts you in the shoes of the other actors in the shows and know what they have to. It's a different kind of stress because the stress you almost have to relax into.
Right.
And I was trained as an actor. I studied with Stella Adler in New York, and so I bring a lot of that training. Even when I deal with the other actors, I'll bring in that kind of training. Even kind of having to, I can't say fake being a medical advisor, but part of.
I was going to say, I think that might inform your job in all areas.
Yeah, because that studying with Stella was such a brilliant experience, and one of the biggest lessons I learned from her was which is a lesson I failed miserably at. That she ripped me to shreds for was one of my most horrific days. We had to go out and study a profession and bring it back into the put it on stage, and I did a really bad job. And
what profession did you do?
I really didn't go out and study a profession. I'd been a busboy in a country club, and I thought I'll bring in a waiter setting up for a banquet. And I had all my props ready to go, put the first prop on the table, and within my first hand going down, something happening, Stella just stopped and said, "Get off the platform. There's no truth in what you're doing. You have no right to be here. You're completely out of control. You did not do the work. You did not do the work. You did not go out and study." And I was just like humiliated. And then as I went to grab all my props and slink off into the sunset, I grabbed my props, and unbeknownst to her, she said, "That's a busboy."
When you dropped all the pretense, basically.
When I dropped all the pretense, and I did something that I did 100 times, and I was like, oh, there's a good lesson learned. And so it was.
So basically now you have become an on-set medical advisor because that's what you need to be.
That's what I need to be, and it's also, I know what is required. What's interesting is I know enough about acting to know what each actor might need. Each actor is different, and some actors want to work with their props. Some actors absolutely don't want to work with their props and will tell you up front, "I don't work with props." Right. And you have to be able to adapt to each situation. Like TR was just wonderful because he'd come in and he would say, "Give me 5 things to do," and it's like, "Oh, okay, I can go along with it. I'll give you 5 things." So that was. I was a joy to work with them.
Right. So so I think it sounds like you enjoy being able to manufacture the situations for people, whether it's for the extras in the beds or for our guys.
Yes.
So that actually leads to my next question. I was going to say, what is the best thing about your job? I mean, obviously it's creating the medical and having a receptive audience to it.
I would say there's 2 best things. The first best thing is the crew. To work with a group of people 10 or 11 years and still want to come to work and still enjoy and laugh and have a good time with those people, bar none, it's the crew. The second part is the days are never really the same. So when you're getting out of your car and coming to the stage, it's like, what's the day going to be about? And it could be something crazy. We could be out on location. It could be blood everywhere, or it could be sitting and watching a monitor for 14 hours and doing nothing. So you never quite know what it's going to be, and then every day is different.
Like today, you were twiddling your thumbs a bit. And it was
it was
pretty like, come find me, whatever. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay, I ended up being more busy than you did. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to go find Payton. So, okay. So what sort of advice would you give someone who wants to get into this business? Because you came, as you said, from the acting background, not a medical background at all.
Well, and mine was a coordinating background. Mine was a production background.
Right.
And what I would say is I got into this medicine stuff because it was something to learn, and I've had many different jobs in the entertainment industry, but each time is like, if I'm learning something, I'm interested, I'm involved, I'm engaged, and this was something that I could be totally interested in, and I was like, I just walked in the door and thought, oh, there's a lot for me to learn here, and in the process, I've got to meet world-renowned doctors, I've got to meet medical professionals. And the thing that really kind of excites me about doing this is the surgical stuff and all that harkens back to the theater, which was my first love. So doing something I was passionate about, but they call it an operating theater. All of it involves a lot of ritual. That the scrubbing is ritual.
And spotlights.
The spotlights. Yeah, the spotlights. The gowning and the gloving. It's all ritual, which is all theater. And so it's not too foreign. You can find something in almost anything to relate to what your passion might be. And this in particular just kind of like, oh, this, I totally get the ritual aspect of this.
Yeah, I never even thought of that. That's a great take on it. Yeah, because we have drama, we got comedy.
And we're come here to play in this theater, this operating theater.
So actually, yeah, we're in OR1 with the gallery up there, basically. So, okay, I think that kind of covers it. My gosh, right. Is there anything you want to tell our audience
about? No, keep
that?
Watching.
Yeah. Much more gruesome medical to come, I'm sure. And
who knows what the season ending has in store for us.
I don't even want to go there. Who knows? No, it's going to be fun like it always is. So thank you very much, Payton, for talking to us. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.